What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Welcome to this live Jackson's Corner. I will explain everything really soon of what this thing is about. So, we're in here tonight, man, to talk about the Baltimore Ravens quarterback, Lamar Jackson. Why? Well, who else is there on the team to talk about? Yeah, we have a lot of good players. We have a lot of players who have noteworthy names, a lot of big time guys who can ball. But everything starts and ends with one Lamar Jackson. And so tonight, man, we're going to get into kind of a big conversation where we're discussing if Lamar Jackson is a Hall of Famer. Understood, his cement isn't dry, he's still pouring it. And so, what the end of his career looks like has no bearing on this conversation. We're assessing if he chose to walk away after 7 seasons, would his next stop be in the NFL Hall of Fame? And so uh, this conversation is going to be a one of one, right? Meaning I'm only talking about Lamar Jackson in comparison to Lamar Jackson. Comparing him to other quarterbacks will be for another day. It'll be for another time. But what I'm going to be doing today is comparing him to just him. If you come in here and this stream is already started, I encourage you to fast forward through this housekeeping. The first part of this video is just going to be housekeeping. It is important, but it's not going to be as important as the content that we have on tap for tonight, getting into this conversation. So, a few things. What is this conversation about? What is Jackson's Corner? So, Jackson's Corner is a segment that I'm going to be doing every week, starting tonight for the next 20 weeks. This week, next week, the week before the season starts, 17 weeks of a regular season, how many other playoff games we have, and then we'll decide what we do in the off season. But it's a segment, man, where we're just going to break bread talking about the Ravens quarterback. And so what I want to jump off with tonight, what I want to bring to you tonight is he a Hall of Famer? I've heard many conversations about Lamar. Is he in? Is he on the verge? Has he already done enough to have a Hall of Fame career? And I won't give you my answer until the very end. But I'm giving a little time to see if anybody jumps in because I don't want anybody to come in late. Uh, because when you see this sign right here, let me show it to you. You saw it when you first came in. Is it this one? When you see this sign that says hold your comment, what I'm asking you to do is hold all commentary until I get done presenting the information. When you see this sign go away, right? Or when you see a slide up, right? And we're discussing we're discussing commentary. Please hold your comment. So you'll see this sign right here, and that means just hold it. When the sign goes away, you're free to talk because I don't want, I got your comments on so that I can hear them because I'm on two or three different screens during this stream. And so just bear with me. All right. So I'm gonna give it a few more minutes, see if anybody comes in. Because again, I don't want the comments to interrupt the stream. I want people to know that we are uh, going to be um, putting a hold on some comments, if any, until we get deep into the conversation. All right, let me get my other slide pulled up so we can get this thing jumped off. All right here. All right, let's get it. So, Hall of Famers, right? The NFL Hall of Fame is packed full of quarterbacks. One of them could be Lamar Jackson. And the question is, if he hung it up right now, we know many players who walked away early, big time names. Aaron Donald, we believe, walked away early. A guy like a Patrick Willis walked away early. But probably the most notable person at the quarterback position who left the game early, and his was due to injury, was Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck was the number one overall pick. He was the replacement for Peyton Manning in Indianapolis. In fact, he is probably the selection that closed out Peyton Manning's career in Indianapolis before he went on to Denver. And so he left early. And I'm pretty sure Andrew Luck has been gone from the league 5 years, but that I know of, he's not in the Hall of Fame, nor has he been in conversation. So he's probably the most notable name of a quarterback who left the game early. And so if Lamar Jackson decided right now, you know what? I'm done. I've done what I wanted to do. I've made my bread. I'm out. Is he in? Will Lamar Jackson be wearing a gold jacket? Right. And so I got some metrics, man, that I'm going to measure the Hall of Fame uh, candidate, and my metrics will include uh, passing yards. It will include. Let me go to my next slide. There we go. All right. So my metrics for uh, a guy getting into the Hall of Fame, a 9 or above. An 8 gets you in, a 9 secures your seat, and a 10 is absolutely first ballot, right? So the rating is going to be 0, 1, or 2, okay? The domains, passing yards, it's going to be completion percentage, it's going to be passing TDs, it's going to be interceptions, and it's going to be wins, which are all metrics that absolutely impact a quarterback's Hall of Fame candidacy. So here are the domains once again. Passing yards, it's going to be completion percentage, it's going to be passing touchdowns, interceptions, and wins. And so when we start presenting information, Lamar Jackson will get a 0, a 1, or a 2 for a specific domain. All right. So, what do you guys think? Okay. Is he in or is he out? So, do me a favor, hold your comment. So, the Lamar Jackson Hall of Fame conversation began, as you guys know, all the way back in 2018, where the Baltimore Ravens traded back up into the first round after taking tight end Hayden Hurst to nab Lamar Jackson with the last pick in the first round. All right. And so that said that he was not going to be a starter in year one. Joe Flacco was basically finishing out his Baltimore Ravens career. He was finishing up his contract as a Ravens quarterback. And so we understood, I believe we understood at the beginning that Lamar Jackson was not going to be the starter. Would he get playing time? Absolutely. His ability, his skill set, his athleticism demanded that he get on the field. How much we would not have known in the beginning. His impact, we would not have known that in the beginning. But once he got on the field, he was mostly a special play type player, right? You understood that he was going to get in, maybe do some read option, maybe do some QB sneak type stuff, those kind of things. And that's what he did for the most part. I'm not saying that he didn't throw the ball some, but for the most part, he was a gadget type quarterback, right? But that season was headed nowhere. You guys all remember it if you were around back then. That season, 2018, was headed nowhere. Players started to get hurt. I think Joe Flacco even got hurt, which is how Lamar Jackson was able to step into that starting role. Once Lamar Jackson stepped into the starting role in 2018, he never not started again, right? He never turned the reins back over to Joe Flacco. He ran and threw the Baltimore Ravens into the playoffs. Now, they did not fare well in that playoff game against the Chargers, I believe that it was. In fact, they may have still been in San Diego way back then, but that doesn't really matter. And so got him into the playoffs. Now, 2019, historic season. Let's be honest. Nobody knew at that time that Lamar Jackson would win the unanimous MVP. Nobody knew that. Nobody could have predicted that, right? Because of what we saw from his time in 2018 and that three-quarter lackluster performance in the playoffs. He did get better in the fourth quarter. Nobody would have guessed he would have been the 2019 MVP. He led the Baltimore Ravens to the #1 overall seed, earned a first-round bye, won the unanimous MVP, and right on schedule, the Baltimore Ravens were sent home. I believe that year it was by the Tennessee Titans. But 2 years in a row, Lamar Jackson helped the Baltimore Ravens, elevated them into the playoff race, right? 2020, right? Everybody's wondering at that point, would Lamar Jackson repeat his MVP performance? Could he do it again? What would the Baltimore Ravens do? Now, I don't remember anybody even predicting the Ravens to have a shot to win the Super Bowl, right? And this is really when the conversations began about Lamar Jackson not having a #1 wideout. Can we tell the truth? Lamar Jackson has never had a #1 high end. Let me say it that way: a high end wide receiver. Zay is good, Bate is good, DeAndre Hopkins is old. So in his whole career, he's never had that elite of the elite wide receiver. Whether by hook or crook, it has not happened just yet. But yet and still, he ran and threw the Baltimore Ravens into the playoffs and earned his first playoff victory against the same Tennessee Titans that put them out the year before. Went up against Buffalo. In Buffalo, I'm pretty sure it was snowy. Not a great performance by the Baltimore Ravens offense. Holistically, the defense played well. That was the Lamar Jackson concussion season, meaning he got a concussion in that playoff game and did not return, of course. All right. And so that's when the noise started to get loud around Lamar Jackson. Started to get real loud about his playoff performances and only having one victory in 3 seasons at that point. Okay. So in 2021, anybody who was a Ravens player got hurt. We lost all of our running backs, if I got my seasons correct. Marcus Peters went down that season as well. And then Lamar Jackson eventually left the season with a lower body injury, and he was lost for the season. And so I think he got hurt that year. It was against Denver, I believe. All right. But something strange was happening, right? He was performing well every single season. He had the Baltimore Ravens at the top of the AFC North, had them in contention to win the North, and in many seasons they did win the North, but nevertheless, Lamar Jackson got hurt and left. And so the conversation began: is it's time for him to get paid? Will they give him an extension? When everybody else was getting paid, even guys who had not done what he had done was getting paid. You will not hear me mention another quarterback's name in this conversation, as in comparison, this is a one-of-one conversation. And so we go into the 2022 season. Everybody's healthy. Everybody's returned. What will they do? Well, Lamar Jackson, right on schedule, puts the Baltimore Ravens near the top of the AFC and at the top of the AFC North, and gets hurt once again. And I believe this year was against the Denver Broncos. And I may have those 2 seasons mixed up. He may have gotten hurt against Pittsburgh the year before, Denver this year. Either way, Denver and Pittsburgh were the games he went out and did not finish the season. But now it's time for him to get a contract. Going into the 2023 off season, meaning 2023 hasn't started yet, but it's that year, it's that off season. What is he worth? ESPN was running news cycles over and over again on will he get paid? Is he worth the money? He's injury prone, all these kind of things. And we understand the conversation around Baltimore. We learned late March that Lamar Jackson had got in contact with EDC and asked for a trade if they weren't going to get a deal done. And so it was draft night when we heard the announcement that Lamar Jackson got a contract, right? And that was the same night that they drafted Zay Flowers. He did nothing less than go out and put the Baltimore Ravens at the top of the AFC once again, winning the North, first round bye, gets a playoff win against the Houston Texans, and then they had a debacle against the Kansas City Chiefs. If we go to the 2024 season, I'm trying to get all the years in before we look at some numbers. The 2024 season, at the top of the AFC, but was in a fight with Pittsburgh the entire season for the North. Lamar Jackson led them to the uh, division title, third seed overall. They get a win against Pittsburgh, and then they had another debacle in the playoffs against the Buffalo Bills. And so that's kind of been the 7-year run, the starts and finishes, the highs and lows of the Lamar Jackson era. Now, just on surface, right? When we just look at, is he a winner? Well, yes, because of 7 seasons, 7 complete seasons. The first one only a halftime starter, right? 5 years he's been in the playoffs. Every year he's been healthy and he completed a season, he's put the Baltimore Ravens in the playoffs. And every year he's been in Baltimore, he has had them in contention in the AFC. So he is a winner. But now we need to look at some numbers to say whether he gets in or he doesn't. Okay? And so we need to know, after 7 seasons, is Lamar Jackson a Hall of Famer? If he left the game today, would he put on the gold jacket? Would he put it on? Well, you have to wait and see. You have to wait and see if he would put on the gold jacket. Let's look at his numbers. So when we look at his passing numbers, let me move this out of the way. See if I can. Okay. So when we look at Lamar Jackson's passing numbers, if we look at his completion percentage, I told you he's going to get rated on some of these statistics. Okay, so he has a 64.8 completion percentage. Pretty good. Actually, 64.9, excuse me. So it's almost 65% completion percentage. That's pretty good for Lamar Jackson. He has a little over 20,000 passing yards in total. Okay, so we got 7 seasons of play, 20,000 yards passing. And I don't think I put that number on here, but it's a little over 20,000. When we take that into consideration, right? If we can be honest, those numbers, the 20,000 passing yards, right off would say, nah, not a Hall of Famer. Now, that's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about the numbers. 7 seasons, a little over 20, not even 21,000 yards. That's not good numbers for a quarterback, 7 seasons in the league. But it requires context. Okay. And that's what we're going to provide. We're going to provide some context for why some of his numbers don't look so grand. All right. So we have to take and look at 2018. You got to remember, 2018, he only started half the season, right? And when you only start half the season, you're going to get half the volume of numbers. Okay. And so when we look at 2018, what we're going to see is, hold on, my slide moved. Okay, hold on. Why's my slide doing this? Okay. So when we look at 2018, he has a completion percentage of 58.2. Not too bad, but not too great. He was not elite in that season as a passer. Okay, let's just call it what it was. He completed 99 of 179 passes. That's what gives him that completion percentage. He had just one tick over 1,200 yards passing in the 2018 season. He had 6 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Okay. And so when you take those numbers into consideration, so remember these numbers: 1,200 yards, 58.2 completion percentage, 6 touchdowns, and only 3 interceptions. Okay. Now that's what has his numbers down for the 7 years, because he didn't start all of those games. All right. So now when we come back over here and we look at some passing numbers, if we were to take that 1,200 yards off of the 20,000 yards, that puts him around 18.8 in yards. Okay. Now you have to divide that by 6 years, which would put him about put him about 3,000 yards per season. Now, that sounds better. That hits different. 7 seasons into 20,000 yards, or a little over 20,000 yards, only put him at about 2,800 yards. But it sounds different when you say he's averaged 3,000 yards over the course of his career, right? So I had to kind of pull out 2018 in order to provide some context for why after 7 seasons he only has 20, little over 20,000 yards, which does not average 3,000 yards a season. Now, am I saying 3,000 yards on average per season is elite? No. Now, we understand as a fan base and just football fans in general, Lamar Jackson has gotten better and better every single season as a passer. We're going to check out some more numbers in a minute. Okay. But if I had to base the metrics that I talked about: passing yards, completion percentage, passing touchdowns, interceptions, and wins, I could not give him a 2. I could only give him a 1 in the rating system. In the context of passing, he can only get a 1 because he does not have the passing yards. Again, I'm not looking at history. I'm not looking at somebody else to compare him beside. I'm looking at a gentleman who has had some high highs in the league. But if I measure his passing numbers, even when I extract 2018 and boost his average to over 3,000 yards, I still can't give him Hall of Fame numbers. I can only give him average numbers as a passer. Please hear me. I'm not saying he's not a great passer. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if I'm looking at a complete career as of right now, I can't give him Hall of Fame passing. I can't give him a 2, right? 10 is the max score. Over, when you get to an 8, I believe Hall of Fame. When you get to 9 above, first ballot. So right now, in the domain of passing, Lamar Jackson can only get a 1. Let me say this again, because I know some people get super, super sensitive when you say something about Lamar Jackson, as if you're insulting him. It is not an insult to say that his passing yards for the 7 seasons, I cannot max him out with a 2. I can only give him a 1. A 0 means he has no passing yards. Okay. But because he has some yards, his passing yards don't equal elite. And I know with Lamar Jackson, you gotta have a different metric. There's a metric for him that only certain types of quarterbacks have. All right. So he gets a 2 for the passing yard. Excuse me, he gets a 1 for the passing yards. Let's look at completion percentage. And I meant to look up this for the league wide, but I forgot. If I can just be honest, I didn't get back home until late. So when I look at his completion percentage for a career, he is at 64.9%. That's pretty good, especially when he walked into his career first season at 58%. That's more than a 10% increase. Typically, dudes who can't pass that well early can't pass that well late. But he has absolutely improved. And a part of that, I believe, is because the talent around him, hold on one sec, is because the talent around him has gotten a lot better. That's what I think has really helped his passing, right? When you're throwing to Seth Roberts and dudes like that early on, guys who can make a catch but not really make a play, it's really difficult to get high end numbers when you don't have at least some high end talent at the wide receiver position. See, and the reason why I'm talking about passing so much is not to highlight on where his numbers aren't high, but what's the number before the term dual threat quarterback was dubbed, right? Before that came out, before anybody started talking about it, the question you have to begin to ask yourself is this: what was a quarterback's number one job? Deliver the ball. And so that's all I'm talking about is delivering the ball. Okay? So right here we have 103 wins. So 7 seasons in the league. And one of those, oh, excuse me, here we have 103 games played. Excuse me, I got that wrong. Forgive me. I think he's upwards of 80 wins at this point. So he's winning a high number of his games. I did not put that. I did not put that on here. So forgive me for that. Forgot to add that. But let's look at our next slide. Okay. When we look at our next slide, let's look at. There's his passing numbers. I just didn't get to the slide. He has 20,000 and 59 passing yards. And so that's why when I took away 2018, it put us around 18,800 yards, which then comes out to about 3,100 yards per season. That hits a lot better. That hits a lot better when you can really look at his numbers and put 2018 into a proper context. He has 169 passing touchdowns. That's pretty good. When you look at a 7-season context, and we're going to do it both ways. When you look at 7 seasons, 7 into 16 goes 2 times. That leaves 2, 6, 7 into 26 goes 3 times. So you're looking at roughly 23 touchdowns per season. Not too bad. But when you look at that number like that, it doesn't sound like Hall of Fame-ish. Why? Because I didn't deduct the 2018 numbers. He had 6 touchdowns in 2018. That will leave 163. So when you put 6 into 163, that's still 2. But then now that's 43. That brings it about 27 touchdowns per season. Again, that hits a lot different. I should have made a slide and put those new numbers up there. So now when you're looking at averages, when you're considering, Lamar Jackson's Hall of Fame candidacy, you're talking about over his 6 seasons as a full-time starter, 3,100 yards per season passing, 27 touchdowns per season. Again, remember, we're putting 2018 into a proper context. And then even when you look at interceptions, you minus the 3, that's 43 interceptions. You're still looking at a 3-to-1 rate. Actually, you're looking at a 4-to-1 ratio. Lamar Jackson is averaging 4 touchdowns to 1 interception. Okay. So When you look at when you look at just his passing, okay? When we look at just his passing, and we're asking the question, is he a Hall of Famer? Let's put his score up here. So Domain, sorry for the sirens going down the street in the background. So passing yards, I gave him a 1. Completion percentage, I'm going to give him a 2 because that's around average. That's around when you take a consensus of the league average, he's at or above the league average number. So I'm gonna give him a 2 for passing, especially with the improvements we know that he has made. So his score is right around a 3 right now. We're looking at passing touchdowns. I'm gonna give him a 2. 27 touchdowns per season for a guy who is believed not to be a good passer. I'm going to have to put him in the elite category that pushes him to a 5. Okay. And then interceptions, he has a 4-to-1 ratio, 4 touchdowns to 1 interception. I got to give him a 2 for that as well. Okay. Now, we're at a 7. And now we got to talk about wins. Because wins could really push him. But see, there's 2 types of wins. And I'm not taking anything away from what he's done in the regular season. Okay. I'm not taking anything away from what he's done in the regular season, but wins. He has a ton of regular season wins, but in 7 seasons and 5 times being in the playoffs, I think he only has 4 playoff wins. He won 1 game in 2020. He won 1 game in 2023. Yeah, and he only won 1 game last year. He only has 3 wins in the playoffs. And so there's a guy who was great, okay? And you guys know who it is. I can't mention his name because that's not what this conversation is about today. But there is a guy who was great, who had never won a Super Bowl, did not get it done a lot in the regular season, and he got hit for that. And so, been in the playoff 5 times, but only 3 wins. I can't give him much for that. I'm gonna give him, oh my gosh, I guess I got to give him a 1 because that's the metric. That puts him at an 8. I wanted to give him a 0.5%, but I got to keep things copacetic. I got to keep things with some integrity. So I'm gonna get so he's at an 8 right now. Okay. And so the thing is this: is he a Hall of Famer? His passing numbers, if we break it down individually, his passing numbers say no. His touchdowns say not yet. His interceptions are at an elite rate, 4-to-1 touchdowns to interceptions. So he has had a great career so far. But now we got to do something. We have to do something that nobody else has really the numbers to dispute. There's nobody in history that we can do this metric with, which is what makes this conversation hard of if he's a Hall of Famer or not. We have to talk about the rushing. See, the reason why I didn't do a metric for the rushing, because for a quarterback who can run the ball, rushing is really a bonus, right? It's not the main job. It's not the secondary job of the quarterback. The main job is to put the ball where it's supposed to be. The secondary job of the quarterback is to protect the ball. And he does that for the most part. Okay. But when you talk about the rushing category, you get into bonus. And that may end up making it unfair or fair. or favorable and favorable for him and unfavorable for his contemporaries. But he's going to do something in the rushing category from the quarterback position that you may never see again. When you look at his rushing numbers from the quarterback position, okay, he's had over 1,000 attempts as a quarterback. He has over 6,100 rushing yards as a quarterback, averaging 6.1 yards per carry as a quarterback. So it's not quarterback sneaks and none of that kind of stuff. And he has 33 rushing touchdowns. And this is as a rusher. And so when you consider Lamar Jackson's candidacy, when you ask that question of if he is a Hall of Famer, if he walks away today, he was already between a 7.5 and an 8. I think his numbers as a passer puts him amongst the upper echelon. But I can't have that conversation until next week. But he has a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. He has averaging over 3,100 yards passing per season. He has a ton of wins. I'll bring that part of the conversation back in next week when we get to back to Jackson's corner. But his numbers say you have to let him in. If his passing numbers don't say let him in, when you add in the 6,100 rushing yards, the 33 touchdowns, the 6.1 yards per carry, when you hold the all-time rushing record for a quarterback, wait a minute, there's another slide I forgot. These numbers right here, with no, and we hadn't even talked about personal accomplishments. These things that we talked about, passing yards, rushing yards, completion percentage, touchdowns, both passing and rushing, which means 169 and 33. That means he has 202 total touchdowns. Just to make that note, here's the other part. Here's the other slide I forgot. Now we got to look at his personal accomplishments. Lamar Jackson at the quarterback position. Yeah, the same Lamar Jackson they said he should play running back. The same Lamar Jackson who they said he should be a slot receiver. The same running back who they Bill Polian famously said could not play quarterback, would make it in the league. That Lamar Jackson at the quarterback position has 3 All-Pros. Wow, that's saying a lot, right? That's saying a lot, right? He has 4 Pro Bowl selections. So 4 of those years, 4 of those Pro Bowls, he was an All-Pro. 3 times he was an All-Pro. And he has 2 league MVPs, one of them unanimous, and we all have an understanding of what the MVP race was, how it ended. We all have, some questions about that. And not only is All-Pro the elite of the elite at a position, okay? There is another level to the All-Pro. You have a first team and second team All-Pro. And in 2019 and in 2023 and in 2024, he made first team All-Pro. So when you just look at his raw numbers, specifically passing, you may say, okay, he can't get in yet. But when you add in the rushing, bonus. The rushing is bonus. And then when you look at his accomplishments, you can only say if he walked away right now, he's a Hall of Famer. Now, let me say this before I'm done, and we're going to get up out of here. I don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Because now my comments is based on thinking like the writers think, thinking like the voters think, coming from a place where people are going to try and find reasons to keep him out versus letting him in. And the knock is going to be playoff victories. MVPs or regular season award. All pros, first team, um, and Pro Bowl. They're all regular season awards. And he's been dominant in the regular season. We can never deny that. And he's getting better in the playoffs. But he only has 3 playoff victories. And I think what you do in the postseason speaks loud. Granted, a regular season 17 games will always carry some weight because that's a 17 game sample size. In the playoffs, it's win or go home. And you can absolutely have a bad game, make a bad decision, and it changed the whole course of the game. And we've definitely seen some of those things happen. But I think because of how the sports media world tries to judge Lamar Jackson and keep him down, but lift other dudes up, I think when it comes time for voting, if he was to walk away right now, he's a Hall of Famer, but he wouldn't get in first ballot. That's what I think. Again, not because I'm saying he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, but because I think some of the criticism, some of the critique he's had, they will punish him for not having playoff success. And so I think there are some things he can do in the 2025 season, which is what this conversation was about in the first place. I think if Lamar Jackson does another 4,000 yards, which ups his average for his entire career to over 3,000, if he does another, he's probably going to have 35 plus touchdowns again passing. He keeps low end interceptions. And if the Baltimore Ravens are in contention, I think now and then, or at that point, he becomes a first ballot Hall of Famer. Because see, it's levels to it all, right? You see people say, oh, he's a Hall of Famer. I'm not talking about Lamar Jackson in particular. Well, he's a Hall of Famer. Well, then they're going to want to know, well, did he get in first ballot? See, because that's how they're going to judge Lamar Jackson and everybody who comes along. There's guys who've been waiting a long time to get in the Hall of Fame. Take a Sterling Sharp who just got in. Man, that dude been out of the league for probably 20 years and just not get an opportunity to get in. A guy like his brother in Shannon Sharp, who has 3 touchdowns, multiple Pro Bowls, so on and so forth. I mean, not 3 touchdowns, but 3 championships, excuse me. But he didn't get in first ballot. And so I think they're going to judge Lamar harshly. That's why I say I think it's some work he's going to have to do in 2025 to make him a first ballot Hall of Famer. But as of right now, when I look at all of the numbers, okay, you got to put him in. Maybe not first ballot, but you got to put him in. So you guys let me know what you want me to know. Is he in now? If he walks away, is he a first ballot Hall of Famer? Or is he not in yet and got more work to do, specifically in the playoffs? So listen, let me know what you guys want me to know. I'm your guy, Boulanger, and I'm out.